Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our 2025 Martin Luther King Jr. celebration here. I want to thank Jacina and Ollie for helping us with this. I'm with the Community Coalition for Social Justice. I'm the chairperson, and I've been with the group since it started in 1999 by Emily Spieler, and it started because there was some Ku Klux Klan activity in West Virginia at that time, and we wanted to do something about it. Our main task and job over the years really has been related to doing what we're doing today, holding a celebration for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Started that in 2007 when we had different themes. We tried to involve children in the schools. We've had people like Eileen Evans performing for us, and we're grateful for the city support we've had for that. Other things we've done, we've bought books on social justice and civil rights and donated them to the libraries and to the Shack. We've held other events. We had Economic and Social Justice Fair at the River, Regional Jail Forum in 2009, Fair Housing Forum 2010, Religious Diversity in 2014, and most importantly, I think recently was our civil rights event in the library in July last year. We work with other groups, we support them, we write letters, post Facebook stuff and like that, and try to help them. And our member, Barb Howe, does a wonderful update every month, which tells you what's going on in all these different organizations around town connected with civil rights and social justice. In 2015, the League of Women Voters gave us an honor. Anyway, today we're going to start with a song by Al Anderson, also a member from the start of the group, and then we're going to move on to the book. And Eve Fawkes is largely responsible for that with help from others, but it's a book called West Virginians' Experiences in Civil Rights, How We Have Been Connected All Along, a graphic novel, and she will tell us more about that when we come to it. But first, the song by Al Anderson.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over yonder, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I'm sometimes up, I'm sometimes down, coming for to carry me home. But all my hope is heavenly bound, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends I'm coming home too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Mike, we can't hear you.
Put my button off. Yeah, we're going to talk about, we're going to see a movie about people who are featured in the book, a selection of them. And Eve has been, of course, very responsible for the book. 22 storytellers from 14 counties, and over 200 illustrations done by her, with help by Bob Howe and Joan Browning on editing and things like that. So, Eve, you want to tell us about it? Oh, you're muted too. Oh, something gone wrong?
Yeah, there was a bar covering up the button that I needed to unmute with. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's nice to recognize so many friends on this Zoom today. And I know a number of you probably have already read the entire book. But for those who haven't, let me say that this year, 2024, has been very active for us. We recognize that it was the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, and we put together an exhibit that some of you also, I'm sure, have seen, that first started in the Morgantown Public Library and has since traveled to many cities across West Virginia, is currently in the Kanawha County Public Library and will soon be in Lewisburg, and it can still be scheduled. If you're curious about the book, there are, as Mike said, many storytellers in the book that provided the wonderful context for West Virginians who have been connected in the battle for gaining civil rights through the freedom movement and through today. And we selected 5 of them who included Martin Luther King within their story. And that's who you'll be seeing today. We'll show you a few of the pages that introduce them, and then you'll hear from them directly. And if you're interested afterward, the West Virginia Humanities Council gave us a grant to provide these books free to libraries and museums and related organizations. And to order one of those, you can go to ccsjwv@gmail.com, and we can show you how to do that. And if you're interested personally in getting one, you can also go to the CCSJ website. So that may do it for us to get started here.
Thanks, Eve. Okay, so we're going to see this movie now, and we'll start in a second. Welcome to a presentation of West Virginians' experiences with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this national holiday by the Community Coalition for Social Justice, with facilitation by the WVU OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute, OLLI, January the 20th, 2025.
Family friends with the Kings, Reverend Ronald English is our storyteller who knew Martin Luther King Jr. from childhood through his life and delivered the prayer at Dr. King's funeral. People ask me what Martin Luther King Jr. was like. So much is already known and written about him that I'll just add that he had a good sense of humor that he would let go whenever he could relax. And I remember when he was co-pastor with his father, he invited the church youth group I was in at Ebenezer to his home. He sat down at the piano, first doing little rhyming songs, then some Beethoven, then he rolled out Sam Cooke and Aretha Franklin just to show he knew what was going on. In 1972, I came from Atlanta, Georgia to lead the First Baptist Church on Shrewsbury Street in Charleston, West Virginia. Dr. Mordecai Johnson, who'd been the pastor before me and was now the first Black president of Howard University, came back to preach at my installation. I'd been recruited to come when Lucia James contacted Daddy King, Martin Luther King Sr., to get a recommendation of who might be a good candidate for them. I was his assistant pastor and had been to Martin Luther King Jr. too. Later, I learned Martin preached once at First Baptist, and they were hoping to get him to come back when he was pastor in Montgomery, Alabama. When Eve came to Reverend Ronald English's apartment to interview him for this video, his good friend Joan Browning from Lewisburg, who you meet later, came with her. Joan intended to be a fly on the wall, but their off-the-record discussions of Martin Luther King's early life, extra skills, and Reverend Ron's arrival in Charleston became too interesting to stop. An early public appearance of Michael King before he's renamed Martin by his father is discussed by Reverend Ronald English and Joan C. Browning. King was 10 years old and one of the only Black representatives at this segregated 1939 Posh event in Atlanta.
Yeah, they talked about when
It's little
they-
kids.
Yes,
Yeah, little
yes,
kids.
yes, yes.
Basically,
Okay.
you can get them to stand still and never mind to sing together.
Wow, I really had forgotten that they sang in the choir at the premiere of Gone with the Wind. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, they did. That was amazing.
And as I understand, that was the only Black participation in the
That's
whole
right.
premiere was that
Exactly.
choir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
And I like your story in the book about he would start out on the piano playing classical, German music, and
Yeah.
then he'd switch into
Yeah, and
Motown.
then they go into the boogie woogie. Yeah, and then next thing you know, he running up and down the keyboard like a boogie woogie player. I mean, that was just kind of entertaining us. So I was showing how much he could relate.
He was a pool hustler.
Oh yeah,
That got to the point they wouldn't play for money because he'd always
he
win.
was pretty good. Yeah. That was down at the YMCA, which was on Butler Street, because there was the Butler Street YMCA, and that distinguishes it from the white YMCA, which was downtown. But yeah, he was a pretty good pool hustler from the reputation that he had. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty
Being a
good.
girl, I wouldn't know he didn't play the
Protests of the 70s. I had arrived in Charleston at the tail end of the dismantling of the historic Triangle District, a Black center of culture and entrepreneurial enterprise. People were moved out without enough housing stock to buy or rent because of redlining and landlords who refused to rent to Blacks. The reason for the deconstruction of the Triangle District was to accommodate I-64 and I-79 and the Charleston Town Center, a very large mall with a parking garage. My church was on the very edge of what was not taken down.
But I think that Charleston might have been like that before they tore it up, when there was a community, a downtown community.
Mm-hmm.
And your church was not devastated, but the community around it pretty much was,
Absolutely.
wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. Because First Baptist had been in another location, and when I came, it was in this new location that the pastor had designed and all that. So it was kind of like this. Right when I came, they said the new First Baptist Church was the title of it. But after a while, they dropped the new.
After a while, it wasn't so new.
Yeah, it was so new.
Kitty Dooley had a lot to do with that.
Yes, she did.
It's named Court Street, and there was an argument they needed to keep Court Street because it has all the courts on it.
Right.
So now it's Court Street and Martin Luther King Way.
Yeah. Really had up at the top Martin Luther King Way and then Court Street. That was the compromise they were able to make since they wanted to put it on downtown on the main drag. Yeah, because when I came here, they were just demolishing the Triangle area.
Yeah.
I saw some evidence of it, some houses that were still there, or apartment building that was still there, but they were just in the process of tearing it down. Nicole Hannah-Jones made some very interesting observations from pictures that she had taken in cities like Atlanta and several others, in terms of how the Black community was ravished, and then the highway structure was positioned so that it went around us.
And was like a barrier.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But but at the time we grew up, we were kind of excited about the fact that we had the four-way highway coming through and all that, but didn't know the story behind why it went the way it went. Rather than coming straight through, downtown. It went around town, and some of those areas, which particularly Auburn Avenue, where SALC is located, and where three black churches called Ebenezer's on Auburn Avenue. Then down the street from it was Wheat Street Baptist Church, which was a very prominent church there.
And
with
Big
home
Bethel.
borders, and Big Bethel. That's right. All of them were on Auburn Avenue. And so when they ravished Auburn Avenue, it was like they really broke up the strong political, economic stream that ran through downtown.
I was a Vista trainer, and before they built the stadium for the Braves, and that whole neighborhood was, people owned their little houses,
Yeah.
and they were very proud of them. And it was a huge neighborhood there
Oh,
that
yeah.
they destroyed to build the stadium for the Atlanta Braves.
Exactly.
And they made no, just like
No
Charleston,
apology. Right.
where are these people going to go? They don't care.
Yeah, that's right. No apology.
Just go away. We're
That's
going to
right.
bulldoze your house and make it a parking lot for the Atlanta
That's right.
Braves.
That's right. Yeah.
While working for SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, in 1961, Reverend Dr. Joan Browning, then Joan C. Browning, often found herself running across the street from their Atlantic office to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference office. She would later, as a freedom rider, find herself in the same jail in Albany as Martin Luther King. I was born in Shiloh, Georgia, to a sharecropper family in the shed room of our house that you see here. We hardly left our farm except to go to the Shiloh Methodist Church. And so, like John R. Lewis, I could be found preaching to the chickens at a young age. We were quite poor, but I didn't feel it. When I was old enough to go to school, I fell in love with books and did very well. My first contact with any black person was when we hired a black couple to help us with our cotton crop. My family and I worked alongside them, and by the time I was 16, I had made my goal of picking 200 pounds of cotton in one day. We didn't have money for me to go to college, but I was inspired by Sputnik to become a scientist and help compete in the space race. I won a scholarship to attend the Georgia State College for Women, now Georgia College and State University. I loved being there and had a great roommate. What I learned in college. On campus, I found a perfect place under trees to study. An 11-year-old black girl, Cassandra Mency, came by and sat with me. Nearby was her father's Wesley Chapel AME church that was small and reminded me of my own back in Shiloh. My roommate and I attended for a few months, welcomed by the congregation. The church burned several years later, but the only suspect was not confirmed as an arsonist. When my college administration found out I was attending there, they threatened to revoke a scholarship and forbade me to go back. Not quite deterred, we asked for permission to attend a seminar on race relations at Payne College about an hour away. We were told no on that as well, but then we asked to go visit my roommate's relatives. When that was approved, we went instead to the Payne College event, thinking we would slip back with no one knowing. At Payne, I met Connie Curry, who changed my life forever, teaching us history we never knew and encouraging us to help those who hurt the most, in this case from discrimination. We joined the action on college campuses around the country with a sit-in at a drugstore counter where we sat integrated. As we left, we were attacked, and Bill Diddley told us to run to get out of there. Bill Diddley did not get away and was knifed in the stomach. When the police came, he was arrested, charged with carrying a concealed weapon, the knife lodged in his chest near his heart. He made a full recovery later. We learned just how dangerous this work could get. My name was in the paper, ending my college life at that time.
First connections I made was with the Reverend James MLK Jr. In 1961, I was 18 years old, and I went to a conference at Payne College in Augusta, Georgia. And Payne College had been having these, getting together white and black Christian students once a year, even though it was against the law for us to eat in the same restaurant or cafeteria and sleep in the same dorm. They were deliberately breaking state law. And at that meeting, one of the resource people was Reverend Lawson. And his job, he said, was to teach us why, how, and why now to engage in civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience. And in my notes from that event, I say, he said, you need to dare to be alone. You do it now, not after graduation or not when you're ready for it. When the time is right, you take action. And you stand your ground no matter what. And then he engaged in role playing about engaging in nonviolent civil disobedience. And at the end of that, the Payne College students, the African Americans, said, we've been trying for a year to open up Augusta. Some of you white students seem like you're interested. Would you like to go down and have a sit-in with us? And so 4 of us white students did. We went down and had a sit-in at the 8 Green drugstore. And as we were leaving, a group of white thugs had gathered out front, and they stabbed the black Payne College student who was with us. He told us, no matter what happens, when you get to the door, turn right and run, because people are waiting down there to take you back to campus. So when we turned right and ran, we looked back and saw him lying on the sidewalk with his blood puddling around him. So that was my first demonstration, and I understood this could be serious stuff. I did get kicked out of college, and I went to Atlanta, got a job in the library at Emory, and joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee as a volunteer. And our goal was black and white together. But I wanted to know what was wrong, how I had to have my scholarships terminated. And I saw a notice in the paper that there was a lecture on the other side of town. So Atlanta is still segregated racially. So I get on a bus in the white side of town where my apartment was, and go downtown and change and get on the bus and go to the black side of town to the black college. And I was so glad that I did. That lecture, my notes say that it was October 1961, and the lecturer was Dr. M.L. King, and his topic was Nonviolent Civil Disobedience and the Future of the Negro. And several things he said in that lecture have stuck with me all these days. One of the things he said was, when a wrong has been done, only the person who's been hurt can forgive. And I've used that with work with abused children and with civil domestic violence, because often the abuser will say, I have a good reason for being an abuser. You know, I was tired or hungry or had too much to drink. Dr. King says it doesn't work that way. Only the person who's been hurt can do the forgiving. And I have used that throughout life. And another thing he said was, the Greeks have several different ways of describing love, and the way they describe unconditional love, which is, as followers of Jesus, we were told that would be the way we would love people, and that was agape. And then after the World Trade Center was bombed, this little cat showed up on my porch, and after I couldn't find it a home, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I named it Agape, based on what Dr. King had said in 1961, because there were people I wasn't serious about loving right that minute. But another thing he said, and he always had a good sense of humor, he had a little smirk on his face, and he said, you know, Jesus told us to love our enemies, but he didn't say we had to like them. And I have found that very helpful over the years to try to separate unconditional love and liking people.
Even in jail, they can't stand to see us together. I am still a member of the beloved community who have sent me notes of encouragement. I'll not be afraid. But they sure could use a housekeeper, or at least a bucket and mop. It's so dirty in here, I'm afraid to lie down. And it would be nice to have some heat. It is December. I wonder how long a hunger strike lasts. Gandhi's was quite long.
The people, that I met in my very young days had a lifelong influence on me. Another one that had a great influence on me was Harry Belafonte. He would come to down south and put on concerts and raise money to get us out of jail, frankly. And I had a program when he came in 1962 that he had autographed for me. When he came in 1962, there were some wealthy African Americans in Atlanta who had an after the concert tea party around their pool, and he insisted that some of us young people come with him. And I was always impressed that he never talked down to us. He talked to us just the way he did to Dr. King or these rich pool party people. He always respected the young folks who were involved in the movement. But then he came to Lewisburg, West Virginia in 2014, and we had a teach-in about the Freedom Bill of Rights. And he was our keynote speaker. And we went out to dinner, and I told him I had that program from 1962, but I had given it to the archives at Emory. So a few weeks later, his daughter Adrian came to me and handed me the program for our teach-in in 2014. He had autographed it, and he told Adrian, "Tell Joan, don't give this one away." So I have that here in my house. Another person I really wanted to talk about was Julian Bond. He was when I was a volunteer with SNCC, there were only 3 people in the office, and he was one of them. And he would write press releases about where people were in jail or where things were going on, and on yellow paper and pencil. I would type them and reproduce them, and you put like 50 copies in envelopes and address them to television stations and newspapers. We never had any money. So then he would send me across the street to Dr. King's organization to see his secretary and ask her if she would give us some stamps. And that was a time she would have a stamp drawer that had all different denominations. And so she and I would go through the stamps and figure out which denominations would add up to enough and put them on all these envelopes. A couple of times when we were doing that, Dr. King would come out. Maybe he wanted his secretary to do something for him instead of put stamps on our envelopes. And he was always cheerful, and he'd say, "Well, good morning, young lady. How are you today?" And of course, she didn't know my name and had no reason to, but he also, like Harry Belafonte, liked us young people. We were kind of something new on the scene to be as active as we were. So that's my Martin Luther King story in brief. Another person in our book is Ken Heckler. Ken Heckler was the only sitting congressman who went to march in Selma in 1965. And he and I did lots of stuff together once I came back to West Virginia. And we have a picture when the Martin Luther King Holiday Commission gave me an award and gave him an award. We have a picture of us together. And one of my friends who was artistic changed it so that we have the state capitol behind us. So that are some of my connections to some of the people here.
Born in Osage, West Virginia, and discovered as a singer who would become lead on Billy Ward and his Dominoes' What Do You Do on New Year's Eve, Albert Al Anderson was working in D.C. at the Mayflower Hotel when the 1963 March for Jobs and Freedom happened, just a short walk away. He's pictured here with a men's gospel group.
All in the community, I'm gonna let it shine.
Watching Civil Rights Cycle and What I've Learned from It by Al Anderson. My brother Lewis, Charles Woods, and I left our jobs at the Mayflower Hotel August 28, 1963, and walked over to the Washington Mall to attend the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. What a day! I would spend 20 years in D.C., eventually becoming manager of the Bootery on Connecticut Avenue, where I served the senators and congressmen's families and was the only black manager of anything on Connecticut Avenue. I played music at night and on weekends with the Collegians, where I became good friends with Roberta Flack, whom you might know from her hit, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. I was at the right place at the right time.
I'm gonna let it shine. All in my home.
But long before that, I had started in the shoe business at 11 in my hometown of Osage, West Virginia. When I was 14, I worked in Morgantown after school on Saturdays, and at a nickel or dime per shoe shine, I could make $10 a week. But I was expected to share with my family. Osage was about sharing. We needed to help the community thrive. It was a mining town, one of 13 coal camps, where we were all poor and living in danger of accidents and layoffs. Neighbors took in kids when necessary, and maybe they were a different color than your other kids. They also felt free to discipline you. You would likely get it again at home. And it was a place of diversity, as we would say now. Miners had come for work from 23 countries, and with the Great Migration from the South. White, black, and brown worked together, played ball together, and got along.
Coming for to carry me home.
In 1961, boycotts, freedom rides, sit-ins, and marches of nonviolent protests brought very violent reactions. But now there was television, and the injustice was seen. Public sentiment was changing, but at a cost. In 1962, my bandmates were graduating from WVU and moving on, and I figured I needed to look elsewhere to keep singing. My closest friend in those days was not one of my white band members, but was one of their brothers, Charles Whiston Jr. He was the pilot for the WVU president. We would go to Pittsburgh or the Hayloft on 14th Street in Washington, D.C., the black section of town with the great blues of jazz. Those connections led me to be working in the Mayflower Hotel and to be in that magical place when Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of his dream. The nonviolent march on Washington in 1963 was the most powerful act of peace I have ever seen. And just 3 months after Medgar Evers was murdered while registering blacks to vote, the active power of listening. Everyone at the march was nice to one another. 250,000 people were quiet, respectful, moved, and hopeful. President Kennedy asked for the Civil Rights Act immediately after that. Kennedy was assassinated just months later. That horrible day got the public attention again, and President Lyndon Johnson pushed Congress to pass the Civil Rights Act into law in 1964.
I was working at the Mayflower Hotel, and you have like 10 housemen, and there's 10 floors, and about 4 or 5 of us from Osage here that worked at that hotel. And so I remember that when he's going to be down there, of course there's probably many whites as well, but I said, nobody is going to ask, a black person, not to go down there, because they're going to go anyway. Because everybody with Martin Luther King is that close to where you are and where you live and where you work. There's no way you're not going to be down there. And when you got down there, you would think that some people would be kind of mean-spirited, and people would be, demonstrating and things like that against this Dr. Martin Luther King, because, he was getting really famous and popular. So you figure it would be a lot of folks. But I saw like all those school buses, all those buses that came in there, not only school buses, regular buses, people got off of, if those 400 and some thousand people, was there and they got off there and it was like a serene day, almost like there was something came down on everybody that made people feel like, man, you know, man, this is something spectacular. We didn't even expect that it was going to be like this. So instead of people being in any kind of not understanding what he was talking about or whatever, it seemed like everybody there. Some may even came to be demonstrators or whatever, but I think they even opened up their hearts to say, look, this man is somebody, and we need to recognize him as somebody. So that was one of the greatest days in D.C. that leaving there and going down there to the place where they're having the affair, and we were like, so for us, it was only like about a 10-minute walk, well, Connecticut Avenue, you walk right over the Constitution Avenue, and you're right there. You say it's not like we had to go too far. We didn't have to drive anywhere. We just walked down over the hill and have that glorious day with so many people. And I know they had a kind of a little bit of a march after that, but I think even that many people had got back on those buses, because once you heard the speech, you really didn't need to see the mark, and there was singing and some things like that as well too. But a lot of folks didn't really care as much about that as opposed to the speech that he made that was so powerful. I mean, probably anybody in the country, in the world would think, nobody could make a speech like that. And I hear he changed the speech as well. I hear he changed it, and because he probably didn't think it was going to be like that many people there. So he had to change his whole, but I'm sure he was smart enough to know how to rearrange and say, look, this is a whole different line right here. I got this many people to talk to. I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to make them feel good about themselves. And that's exactly what he did. Made everybody feel good that you were there that day. And I'll never, ever forget that how blessed I was to be there on that day to watch him, do that speech, I mean, it almost is like it was all up inside of you. You know how you get that warmth inside of you? It's like, golly, I'm here today. I'm here. How many people would like to be here that's not here? And how many people that didn't take off that, say, man, I wish I was there,
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam. And
Growing up in Connecticut and coming to Morgantown in 1968 as one of 9 college ministry pastors, Reverend Donald Spencer had recently been inspired by attending a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. service and speech at Arlington Cemetery as King was speaking about the war in Vietnam. Don Spencer's story centers around civil rights in service. He tells us, I grew up in the Catskill Mountain areas of New York in a family that emphasized service to others. My father was a Presbyterian minister, which is what I thought service to be before I knew anything about social work as service. Work was also service, and for me that meant shoveling snow for cash, having a newspaper route on my bike, working for my aunt and uncle on the dairy farm, and recycling pickup door to door on Saturdays for Boy Scouts. One personal scout project I had was raising fan-tailed pigeons in a coop constructed in a garage window. Later, though I tried out for 2 high school teams of basketball, I found my niche as an ice hockey goalie and went to college on a need-based scholarship. I met my wife at college, and we were both interested in seminary and ended up in Edinburgh, Scotland for a first semester. To finance my decision to attend seminary after college, as well as an international trip during the seminary, I was employed as a part-time dishwasher, head coach of a high school wrestling team, athletic director for seminary, a night shift employee of a busy gas station on US 1, a busman for a large restaurant, a carpenter and counter worker in a delicatessen. At the semester break in 1962, we took our VW Bug and crossed the English Channel to visit friends and travel, visiting Scotland, France, Italy, Germany, Turkey, Greece, and the American University in Lebanon. We went on to tent in Syria, in Jordan on the shore of the Dead Sea, and in a hostel in Jerusalem. We got caught in 2 revolutions in Syria. Traveling opened my eyes to cultures beyond my own and to history, politics, and the casualties and causes of war. Clergy and laymen concerned about Vietnam endorsed Vietnam Summer, a campaign promoted by King and the noted pediatrician Benjamin Spock. Throughout the summer and fall, CalCAB chapters engaged in civil disobedience by protecting draft resistors, a departure from their more moderate tactics such as petitions and vigils. The organization's second national mobilization was timed to coincide with the February 1968 release of a study documenting American war crimes in Vietnam. At the gathering, King led 2,500 CalCAV supporters in silent prayer at the Arlington National Cemetery's Tomb of the Unknowns.
One of the things that was different at that time was whether or not the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement could be worked together. And the answer of that to that question was very definitely yes. Event at the church. This large group, which involved, I think, probably more than 1,000 people inside the church, upstairs and downstairs and in the wings and on the floor and everywhere, type thing. Went out of the church and looked for ways to get to Arlington Cemetery, and there were several buses, charter buses that were made available to the group. And these buses were lined up along the sidewalk. And I was one of the later people coming out of the church. And one of the buses at the end of the line, I got on, and there weren't many people on at that time. And well, King came out, Martin Luther King came out of the building, and even after I did, and was looking for some way to connect with the Arlington transfer. And our bus was one of the few buses that had seats left. And so he hopped on our bus and sat down a couple of seats in front of me. And with his the people he was walking and traveling with. And so I did not interact with him directly, but I certainly was very interested in everything that was going on that I could absorb. And so we rode to the cemetery and disembarked from the bus, and King spoke again at the Arlington Cemetery gathering. Obviously, I listened carefully and was delighted. I was obviously influenced by being that close to someone that prominent at the time, and the sad thing about the whole experience was that 2 months later, King was killed in Memphis, and with that kind of awareness, it took on a special meaning for me as an individual, as well as for the things that we were working for both in Morgantown and other places we demonstrated.
Don Spencer has walked the walk in the steps of Martin Luther King in service. As deputy mayor, he was able to work with legislators to pass a home rule law for cities in the state that wanted to go beyond what state laws granted to do more for their citizens. As deputy mayor, he initiated a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, an inclusive city initiative, a green team, and the Morgantown Human Rights Commission. That commission passed 14 resolutions that went beyond the state human rights code. One of them is in blue here. It says, "Welcome to Morgantown. The city of Morgantown welcomes all people, regardless of race, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, color, ancestry, age, abilities, economic or family status, or life situation. We strive to be an inclusive community for our residents and visitors. We ask everyone to act with a helpful intent, to respond to each other with civility, and to treat our environment with respect." Don says, "I was privileged to share moments in the presence of Dr. King and benefit from the strength of his confident vision for a functional equity in our future. This made my receiving the Martin Luther King Jr. Achievement Award in 2015 from the WVU Center for Black Culture and Research a time for both intense feelings of unworthiness and continued resolve to live with a pacifist, equity, and environmental orientation in my life. We must all do more to protect our vulnerable populations, such as the LGBTQIA+ friends and those challenged with mental illness. There is work yet to do." Growing up in Charlestown, West Virginia, and this year's vice president of the WVU NAACP branch, Sierra Velez talks about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. surrounding this national holiday as one of love. She compares it to the acceptance of interracial couples now, from 1967's Loving versus Virginia decision. In our book, she describes the need for the Crown Act to protect natural hair. Historically, black hair has been outlawed when natural. In the South, there was even a law that women slaves had to cover their hair. Other options were cornrows that could include designs that signaled an escape route. Natural hair and dreadlocks can be spiritual, as in the Nazarenes who never cut their hair, something that has been banned in places throughout American history. The work and expense and connection to identity has brought about the need for protection in schools and the workplace for the right to style one's hair without restriction to make it mimic white hair. This legislation, called the Crown Act, with the acronym Create a Respectable and Open World for Natural Hair, has passed in 24 states, including Texas and Arkansas, but has not yet passed at the federal level. Sierra says, "My cousin braided this for me. Often a friend or family member will learn to do braiding to save money, but it's still an investment of time and for both. To ask someone to take it out is a cruel affront to that as well as to identity." Sierra Velez tells us about hair and the need to protect it with the Crown Act. Hi, I'm Sierra Velez from Charlestown, West Virginia in the Eastern Panhandle. I'm interested in our elders and would like to be an occupational therapist and help people recover their health and mobility. I'm also interested in identity and history. All of this connects to civil rights. I have thick, fast-growing hair. When I was a kid, I hated all the time and pain it took to get my hair combed and contained. But my sister was tender-headed, and it was worse for her. She screamed and threw herself on the floor. Black hair is real work. All through school, my hair has been a point of teasing. When I was younger, kids would stick pencils and objects in my hair to see how much it would hold. Even in honors class, I was called Bushhead. On picture day, in 3rd grade, I'd gone through the whole hair straightening process and was ready for the picture. Then the photographer gave everyone a comb. and all the white girls were combing their hair, so I started combing mine, and it got bigger and so big. And that was my picture that year. Charlene makes a cameo appearance on this page. I was tender-headed also, and hated having my hair combed. With 6 girls, my mother had to spend hours on us without the products we have today. She used Vaseline. When I could, I just kept my hair short and had it styled. I have never done my own hair. Later, a white beautician friend loved doing my hair because there was so much to work with.
Hi, my name is Sierra Velez. I am a student at Western University, and Martin Luther King has impacted my life through the community that I grew up back home. Every year we had a Martin Luther King breakfast on his birthday, celebrating different Black people in our community that are doing well for themselves, kind of showing like the legacy of what his impact had on America and how far we've come as a Black community. So we would have music showcases, we'd have speeches, people who were doing well in career would come and back to the community and talk to us, and it was just a great way for us to all get together and celebrate his life. Yeah. I feel like all types of love, like even family love, because he was very big on church and community, and even like relationship love. Like interracial relationships are very big nowadays, and like they're very common. It's not like you're turning heads when you see of any race mixing. It's like really nice. Like it's very open. I feel like it opens up a whole new generation of communication and knowledge, and it's beautiful to see, and I'm really excited to see what that has impact on our kids and like what the new generation will do just from that. Yeah.
Any comments?
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions or comments? There's nothing in chat for us, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask away if you have questions.
Can you hear any of us from wherever we are?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, this is Judith Stitzel, holding back tears and smiles, and I am so moved by what you have given us as a gift and a call. I could not be more grateful to my colleagues and want to thank you for the gift of love that you have passed from Martin Luther King to all of us. Thank you.
Mike, can you take down the slide so we can see one another and share? There we go.
Thank you for enriching the book, which I've really enjoyed, with the film that you made. It's really enhanced it nicely. And this was the perfect thing to do today. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to share today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the video will be on the CCSJ website, so people can go back to it or share it with those who weren't here.
And the video there won't have the lag time that the Zoom caused.
Thank you, everyone. What an amazing video and a great way to commemorate Martin Luther King Day here in Morgantown. It was so special. I just heard via text from a friend of mine in the outer Chicago area, and just thinking about what people are doing around the country. But I think what has just happened here in Morgantown with the production of this beautiful graphic novel that's so informative and inspiring and thoughtful, I'm just so filled with gratitude, as Judith said, and so grateful for the video produced today. I'm going to recommend that it be aired on West Virginia Public Television so other people can see how we commemorated locally, how we commemorated MLK Day, and to inspire others. So thank you all very much.
Barry, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a copy of the book which I read. I was just so impressed with it. Just such an achievement for Eve and Barb and everybody else that worked on it. And just that I knew so many people, that I know Don Spencer, and I know Charlene Marshall, and I didn't know the extent of all these stories. And also, there was kind of a guilt thing, because when we were kids, I grew up in Baltimore and everything was very segregated. And we went to Milford Mill Pool, and we went to Price's Dairy for ice cream, and we went to Gwynn Oak Park Amusement Park, which all of which were segregated. And the thing is, we didn't have a lot of choices. There wasn't. I mean, I don't know what black kids did, but for Jewish kids, there wasn't any place else to go, because the neighborhood swim club in my neighborhood did not accept Jewish members. It was a private club. So we went to Milford Mill, which did, but they didn't allow blacks to go there. And I feel kind of guilty that I didn't do more um, to fight that when I was young. I mean, I was, talking about 13 or 14 years old. I did ask my parents if I could go to the March on Washington in 1963, but I was 13, and they were just like, "You're absolutely not going there." And I understand that now, but I was kind of annoyed. Anyway, the book was wonderful, and I really appreciate the having today to do this. Thank you.
There's a hand up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Takaya?
go ahead and
Takaya, is that Takaya Smith?
Yes. Hi, how are you? You pronounced my name right. I wonder if we've been on a thing before, but I appreciate it. I just wanted to say thank you. This was great. It was so beautifully put together. I know a lot of us are reflecting. Today is a big day for so many reasons. So it kind of felt good to be centered and rooted in history and resistance, especially from home. I'm born and raised in West Virginia. I'll just try to be succinct with the rest of this. So I have a youth organization, and we work with college students to get them civically engaged, and with community members of all backgrounds. And obviously, when it comes to voter turnout and folks believing that things can be changed, that is a work in progress. And one thing that has consistently come up, especially recently, is that folks don't or have a hard time believing that change can happen, because they're not always aware of how change has happened even in our own state. So this is like so spot on. West Virginia has been like a place of resistance, but even some of the things in here like was my first time kind of learning about it. So I just appreciate it. I will tell my students about it, and I'll like look out for the link. I'm kind of long-winded, so thanks. Sorry.
Thank you.
Is there a link that we can send to our friends immediately, to people who might not know how to get to it any other way? What's the best thing to do next?
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
it will be a couple of days before the video is available,
Okay.
because we have to download it and edit
Sure.
it and re-upload it. So it'll be a couple of days, but it should be available shortly.
And you'll let people know when it's available?
Yes.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there. I put my hand up, but I guess it's been taken down. I'm Peggy Pings, and I just loved hearing everybody's stories. It just really made the book way more alive for me, which, because I'm not that great of a person that sits down and reads books. I'm a rare breed that way, I guess. So the video was and stories was great, and I I was born in 1955 and raised in the Madison, Wisconsin area, and I was way too young to have been involved like Dawn, like you were, or you know, some of the other elders in our midst. And but I was involved in the demonstrations against the Vietnam War at age 16, 17. And so it was, you know, actually where I was raised in Monona, there really weren't any Black families. I was living in a white community. There was just one Black family in our high school, and that's it. And so, yeah, I was not very well connected with the civil rights issues at all, but certainly anti-war. And I really appreciate hearing how the two efforts were able to meld together. Anyway, thank you so much for doing that, Eve. It was a labor of love. I just
Mike
loved
did the hard work.
Who did?
Mike, he put all the videos together.
Yeah, but you got the book together to start it out and get the interviews. So it's a group effort for sure. Thank you.
Could I just say one thing?
Mm.
When Eve was interviewing Reverend Ron English, I wasn't supposed to be part of that. I was just tagging along because she had just picked up the books from the printers and we were delivering them to people in the Charleston area who were in it so that they could have it. And of course, one was Reverend English. But you know, when we get together from the old days, there's just no stopping us. And so he and I had a wonderful about hour and a half visit, lots of laughter. I hope that came through how much we enjoyed being together and telling stories from back in the day that we may be the only people we know who knows those stories. But we really like each other and we get along and have great fun. And I admire Eve for finding something in the midst of our yucking it up that she could use for the video. Thank you, Eve.
Karen, go ahead.
Hi. Yes, this was amazing. And Eve and all those who helped you, thank you so much for doing it. I really liked what the young woman said who had I think she said she has a youth group about giving people hope in these days, especially today, and giving us all hope and knowing that there have been successful efforts in the past. The civil rights movement, it's just critical that we work to keep that in our history. And I'm wondering what efforts have been made to get this into the schools. Now, maybe I missed at the beginning. If you already addressed that, I apologize. But that would be my question. What efforts are we making to get it taught in the schools?
One effort is that the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation gave us $2,000 to print 350 copies of the book to be distributed to the West Side. And they're going to get into schools, I think. Okay. Mavry Davis, who is one of the directors of West Side Together, has initiated that. And he has 150 different organizations that meet monthly. And so those people are getting them and they're going to be distributed there. We've had a couple inquiries about schools, and of course it's going to be a race to try and get it in as many libraries and places as possible before the legislature gets wind of it.
Yeah. Well, yes, which could be imminent. I mean, it could be very soon.
Yeah, but we'll try to make them feel very ashamed if they do that.
Good.
I can also say that we have some books. The first run of our printing from the Humanities Council had a graphics error. So we had to have them all reprinted that we're now sending out. But we have some copies that we can distribute as class sets for schools. And I've had one request somebody who's on the West Virginia Studies Facebook page has put it out as a possible connection for resource for West Virginia Studies teachers. And we've had one request for that, and then that's the one where the teacher is considering it for a class set. So I can't support the whole state for West Virginia Studies, but if you have links to teachers who might be interested, they can contact us at ccsjwv@gmail, and we can see if we can get them some copies. I don't think too many students are going to care that one graphic doesn't look the way it should, but even I care, so we can't put them out as the official book.
Okay, well, good.
Which one is that, Barb?
Your book doesn't have the mistake, but
Yours doesn't have the mistake. No.
yeah, it was page
No, no.
115. The typography got all messed up.
Yeah. We were all set to mail them off and paging through it and thought, oh no.
Okay.
So those of you who have a book now have a good copy.
Hello. Yes, I was just going to share that I live in Washington, D.C. And today, thank you for this, because today I so put my focus on MLK Day. And that's really what I've been doing all day while other activities, historic activities are going on walking distance from where I live. And I wanted to say that I remember, because of growing up here, and my parents were active in fair housing, but even before that, I remember going down when I was 14 years old to the National Mall to spend time with the Poor People's Campaign, the first Poor People's Campaign there. And I remember many of them arrived with mule-drawn wagons and different things, and the members of the campaign, it was a residential campaign on the mall while that was there. And I just remember it was so interesting to just walk around and talk with people, and at different times, and Dr. King was there, and it was just really, I'm really glad I had that opportunity. And I remember it rained so much of the time when they were there, so that there was just so much mud too. But it was one thing about living here. You certainly have the opportunity to participate in a lot of actions and different things. So thank you very much for doing this.
That was called Tent City, and it
Yes,
went
yes,
very
it
well
was. It was
until it
called
rained,
Tent
and then
City.
it turned into Mudville.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Joan.
Go ahead.
Joan, I was just wondering, as a young woman at some of those events, did you ever feel your safety was threatened, or did you ever get hurt?
We were all expecting to die any day, and that motivated us to do what we thought was the right thing to do. Before we went on a freedom ride, we would make out our last will and testament, because make life easy for whoever had to mop up after us if we didn't come back. Actually, when I turned 25, I said, I'm really surprised. I didn't expect to live this long. But, being afraid and not acting, two different things, and you can just work through fear. Especially, we were together in the beloved community. We took care of each other the best we could, and whatever happened, we would do it together. So that overcame a lot of the hesitation that fear might have engendered.
You had a lot of strength in numbers.
There wasn't that many numbers for a while. Now, the tent city had quite a few people, but when I was in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, there were only 3 staff people and about 5 volunteers, and that's not a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you call the SNCC, would you call that a communist organization? I think that's how it's been tried to be labeled, hasn't it, recently? Or in the past even?
Birmingham attorney Charles Morgan was once asked that question. He said, I hope there are communists in there. It would be a moderating influence. No, we didn't ask your credentials. If you're willing to be with us and willing to risk your life, we didn't ask you, and we didn't have an application form. There may have been, but I didn't know any.
With whom is this video going to be shared next? What we were just privileged to see, where does it go next?
It goes on our CCSJ website, Judith, and it's open to anybody who finds it. And any way we can publicize it. So that's a public website, and there'll be a link that Michael put up that'll make it available. And we have a resource page, and we're always amazed at how people find our resources page and want us to put up links. So Google search is working somehow, and people find us, but anything people can do to publicize it on their Facebook pages or anything like that is certainly welcome.
Thanks, Barb. To blink at some point.
Karen, did you have a question?
Oh, thank you, Jacina. I wanted to thank Joan for her everything she did and the inspiration she is to all of us to work through our fear for when the time may come to which really I guess the time is here and always here, but in our own ways to try to not be fearful and because the courage you had to have, Joan, is seeing people stabbed in your movement, and that time, especially over the next 4 years, we may need to do it. And I just wanted to thank you. And then also, Jacina, now as OLLI members, we really should not distribute the recording of this, right? When we get it.
Oh, it'll be fine. You can distribute it.
Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a community event, so it's free and open to everybody. So yes,
great.
Thank you for clarifying, but yes, it'll be available to everybody.
Excellent. Send it out to all our friends and family.
Yeah. I will make sure that Mike gets a list of everybody who signed up today. So you should have had to put an email in when you signed up to attend today. So he'll have that list, and if he wants, or I can work with him to make sure that we get sent directly to you guys for sure. And then where you can find it beyond that will be, but like I said, it will take a few days. So be patient.
Thank you.
Would it be appropriate to put a little flyer at the bottom if somebody just absolutely feels compelled to make a contribution to CCSJ to continue this work?
That's a question for you, Mike and Barb.
I would say that we have our website email in here. You can go there to find us, and you can learn how to order the book from there if you want to. And there's a donate page there for if you want to do that. So since we are working with OLLI, we need to be respectful of that. So if you want to know more about us from what Mike told you, just go to our website, please.
Works. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Well, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Any last words from Mike or Eve or Barb?
Well, as you say, thank you very much for attending and all the nice comments we've had. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll make one last comment for OLLI members specifically. Mon County schools are closed tomorrow, so we will not have any in-person classes. If your class was meeting on Zoom, it's been postponed. Campus Club Book Club will meet on Zoom, but Milan, Karen Long's class will not meet tomorrow. So stay warm out there, guys. Stay safe.
You all too. Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.